And finally, Margaret, to be a good president, I fear that a man cannot be his own mentor. He cannot live the Sermon on the Mount. He has to be a Machiavelli, a Caesar, a Borgia, an unctuous religio, a liar, a whatnot, to be successful. So I probably won't be. But I'm having a lot of fun trying the opposite approach. Maybe it'll win. Lots of love, Dad.
Say, Rose, are Mr. Johnston or Mr. Whitney there? They're there. Well, fine. What about the Attorney General? Tom Clark's there, and what about Charlie Ross? Well, good. Send them all in, Rose. Thank you very much. Good morning, gentlemen. I see you, Mr. Johnston. You're looking very well, sir. Fine. Mr. Whitney, how are you, sir? Fine. Tom, Charlie, please stand right there. Well, gentlemen, what have you worked out on the proposed settlement? You mean to tell me that 18 of your 20 railroad brotherhoods are willing to accept the arbitration award, but you're going to stop the railroads from running anyhow? Well, boys, if I knew you were going to tell me that, I wouldn't have asked you over here this morning. The good Lord may have built the earth in 6 days, but that surely was before labor unions. If you think I'm going to sit here and let you tie this whole damn country up, you're crazier than hell. You've got 48 hours to reach a settlement. If you don't, I'm going to take over the railroads in the name of the government. That's all, boys. I said that's all, Mr. Johnston. Mr. Whitney? Well, Tom, Charlie, what do you think? Well, wait a minute, Charlie. Listen, I know better than you do that their labor unions have always backed me politically, but this is not a case of labor versus management. No, sir. This is a case of a few big money boys in management and the war-rich unions against the government. And I'm going to teach them to exercise some social responsibility. Well, I'm trying to get this country back on a peacetime footing. And I am not going to have the private citizen getting hind hit on this deal. It's got to be fair all the way around, and this damned inflation business has got to stop. I'm going to take the hides off those bastards. And that goes for the National Association of Manufacturers crowd as well. They are not going to stampede me into lifting price controls. But, Charlie, you think we ought to consult some economists, do you? Well, let me tell you something. I stopped into some supermarkets on my walk the other day. And I don't need those economic wizards to tell me that this country's hurting. All you got to do is see how it's buying. No, sir, Charlie, only one way to stop this. And that's a few swift kicks in the right asses. Besides, if you laid those economists end to end, they'd point in all directions. I'll tell you, boys, if we leave this up to management, they'll have prices so damned high that you'll wish you were in the undertaking business. Just to pick up the newly dead. Why, they'll show us net profits or net greed so high, it'll have every labor leader in this country screaming for higher wages. And they'll both be screaming that I'm interfering with private enterprise. Well, it's not going to happen. I tell you, boys, if we leave this up to management, they'll have prices so damned high, the average citizen won't be able to buy anymore. Well, and of course, that's exactly what management wants. Of course they do. They just yell sales lag. And then they lay off a whole slew of workers, and then the unions get panicky and tone down their demands and ask for less money, which is exactly what management planned all along. And then, of course, they give the working fella just enough to get him buying again on the installment plan, I might add. You know, they say that they're for competition, but they're for eliminating competition. And I am sick of this government being filed and flouted and the people bankrupt and ruined. I may have inherited this job, but by God, I'm in charge, and they damn well better know it. That's all, boys. You know, I never saw myself as president. I was just in the right place at the wrong time. Lots of folks in this country could do a better job than me, but it became mine to do. And as long as you put me here, you're going to get the very best I've got. I always thought of myself as a very ordinary man. I have no special personal endowments at all, but I don't waste time worrying about what I don't have. I just try to do the best with what I do have. And I certainly don't waste time trying to figure out how to say something or even do it. I think the important thing is to get it said and done. And I certainly don't waste time comparing myself to other men like Mr. Churchill or Mr. Roosevelt. There's no need to do that. Every man on this earth does things a little differently. And in fact, I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of the all-time great American snob, the Lady Astor. Well, she was a transplanted Virginian, and she acquired such a strong British accent that even the British couldn't understand her. Let alone stand her. Well, I happened to run into the Lady Astor at some function. I think it was down in Williamsburg, Virginia, and she made some rather unkind remarks about my Missouri accent. Well, I cut her short by saying at least my accent was natural. But Mr. Churchill, the point of my story is Mr. Churchill does things just a little differently. Now, he ran into the lady at some dinner party in London. The kind of party that Winston truly enjoys, and he derives much of his joy from imbibing rather large amounts of brandy. Well, he was seated next to the Lady Astor, and she undertook to give the Prime Minister a little lecture. She said, "Mr. Prime Minister, I think you are quite drunk." Well, Winston looked at her and he said, "You're quite right, my lady, I am quite drunk, but you're quite ugly, and tomorrow morning I will be indisputably sober." Well, you see what I mean, anyway, don't you? Oh, Herbert Hoover's in town. Now, that's one of the problems with this job I've got. When you leave it, you got to find something else to do. Oh, really, think about it. It's hell for a man trying to find work when he's been president of the United States. Would you get me the Shoreham Hotel on the line, please? No, just put it through, Hackey. I'll handle it. Thank you very much. Great man, Herbert Hoover, in my opinion, honestly. You know, he did a great job after World War I, feeding all those poor, unfortunate, starving peoples over there in Europe and in Asia, and then we rewarded him with this job. Then the Depression hit, and we all turned on Herbert Hoover, but the Depression was not created by Herbert Hoover. It was created for him.